Where children are involved, how do we prepare them for separation? The most ideal is where the two parents sit and explain to the children that they are going to be separate, not living together, and they give reasons. Let me say this, that the reasons given do not need to be reasons that adults understand. Depending with the age of the children, let me break the ages down so that I clarify the role of telling. Below 2 years will not understand anything. They may not need to be told. Below 2 years only need a consistent attachment figure. If the mother is the one to keep the baby below 2 years, then that child is more safer, only if the mother is in a better mental and emotional space. But a child below 2 years can be able to go through life almost naturally if the mother is keeping the child and the mother is in good mental and emotional space. In cases where the children are post 2 years, let's say 3 years to 8 years, then again they need to be given correct information. Now, depending with how children perceive information, your children, it is okay to let them know that the mom and the dad are having disagreements, they are not friends anymore, and therefore they are going to be separate ways so that they can work through their issues. Children thrive when they know parents have solutions. And the solution here is if you're telling the children and you're saying, it's because daddy is leaving mommy, thus children will be so conflicted because they feel the need to save mommy. But if they know that the two parents are in agreement, they are living so they can resolve their issues, then there's some level of safety. While preparing children at whatever age, they need to understand that, number one, it is not their fault. The reason why children need to be told that it is not their fault is because children perceive the world of the parents as their own responsibility. When parents are fighting, there's something wrong with the child. That's how the child perceives their world. So parents saying it is not your fault that mommy and daddy are going separate ways helps them to know that it is actually not their fault. The next part of preparing children for divorce is there needs to be a lot of assurance for love, that mommy and daddy loves them and they will not stop loving them. Only give this promise if you intend to keep it, because children are constantly going to watch out for love from both of their parents. The other part of preparation for the children is for the children to be given space to ask questions. So after telling us the children, what is it you would want to ask us? Let children ask all the questions and offer them answers as accurately as possible. In preparing children, ensure that you do not paint the other parent black. Irrespective of how wounded and hurt you are by someone, ensure that you don't pass this to the children, because to the children, both of you are parents and both of you are adorable to them. There's another aspect when you're preparing children, whether it is between 3 years to before preteens or preteens and moving above, ensure that the time you're sharing the information is not nighttime, because they will not sleep. Ensure they're not going to school because they are going to be anxious. Ensure that they are not going to do an important thing or function because they are going to be disoriented. Let it be within the day in an atmosphere that is relaxed, so that if should they want to cry or to just throw tantrums, then they have an opportunity. Also, ensure that for a while you'll be present to support them, either of the parents. It's not like you're breaking the news, then you get out of the compound and leave. The children are going to experience abandonment at that point in time. Again, when it comes to preteens to the teenagers, these ones understand more, and probably they have been able to see the conflicts in the marriage to some level. So these ones, you explain that you are having unresolved issues and that you're taking time away so that you can be able to resolve them. At this point, the adolescents understand that, and the preteens understand those kind of statements. Also, do the same process. Assure them of love, remind them it's not their fault, and let them know that the two parents will be there for them only if the two parents are deciding to be there for their children. In cases where the two parents are not there to sit, the parent who is more emotionally stable can do this process, only ensuring that they are not painting the other parent as the bad one. So how then do we handle the adult children? These ones are pretty easier to handle because it's easier to tell them that the marriage is not working for both of you, is not beneficial, or you both need to think about where it's ended. And also because these ones are less dependent, then they also need the details. Of course, when you're dealing with young adults, they will ask very, very direct questions. Again, as a parent at this point, even if they understand, you may need to consider not to tell all the details, the gory details of your marriage, because adult children may have a preference between the two parents, and depending with which one they think is wrong, they may take sides. As much as possible, say your truth without necessarily painting the other person wrong. So for adult children, it's pretty much easier, but then again, they still need the information. You have to choose how far to disclose to them, because these ones are understanding, they can see, and they definitely may also prefer a certain parent over the other for their own reasons. Divorce and separation affects children of all ages. Again, we are going to break down the effects on different ages for children post-divorce or separation. The children below 2 years, as I said, may not experience much if the attachment figure, the mother, remains with them. And at this point, I'm making an assumption that the mother has been involved in the life of the child below 2 years, which I know is not always the case. So the person who has been consistent caregiver then remains where the mother has not been in their lives. In this case, below 2-year-olds can be able to move through life with ease if the person is emotionally stable. And why am I insisting on emotional stability? The reason I'm insisting on emotional stability is because when the caregiver or the mother is not emotionally stable, then they pass negative emotions on the child. I know anyone who has observed a young child will bear witness that if the mother is in distress, the child becomes restless. For this reason, if the caregiver or the mother is emotionally unstable, their first priority needs to be emotionally stable, because they are going to be passing their distress, their stress, and every other negative emotion on the child, and the child will end up being negatively affected. In cases where they are well, they are able to offer wellness to the child. So 3 to 8 years, again, we see variety, or the behavior is is very different between children. But some of the common behaviors around this process post-separation is low self-esteem. The child begins to lose confidence for things they looked very confident on. The child experiences anxiety. We will see change in sleep patterns, change in eating patterns, and in some cases, change in behavioral patterns, like the normal day-to-day operation where the child was active, we are likely to see the child is no longer active. Then we see also withdrawal. Children isolate. A child who was very playful is no longer playing. A child who was very easy to experience life and even go out alone is now very clingy. They cannot leave their parents. They're not allowing the parent to leave. In some cases, the children keep asking the parent that they are living with, are you going to come back? Where are you going? There are very many questions around where are you going and when will you come back? Children ask that because they are afraid that this particular parent may as well abandon them, like the other one who is no longer living with them. There are also aspects of children trying to reconcile as they ask you, but mommy, why can't you forgive daddy? Or daddy, why can't you forgive mommy? Because they perceive that forgiveness would bring back the marriage. There's an aspect you want to reconcile. And I need to say this one really confuses the parents and make them feel guilty, because they feel like if they do what the child is asking, the child is going to be happier. In some cases where the child has stopped things like bedwetting, has started feeding themselves, they were able already to go to the toilet by themselves, you realize they have regressed. They now want to be fed, they begin to pee on themselves again, they bedwet at night because they are going through a certain level of trauma because of the separation. In some cases, we'll see a drop in performance, where children were doing very well at school, they no longer are doing very well. The levels of tantrums will increase for the younger ones, 3, 4, 5 years, and for the older one, they will become more aggressive. Especially if they be boys, they become very, very aggressive, and when they are girls, they become more withdrawn. So these ones can interchange, so that also boys get withdrawn and girls become aggressive. But in the general scheme of things, boys become more aggressive and girls become withdrawn. Now, let's focus on the effects of separation for the children in preteen and in adolescence. These ones are more affected because they're beginning to form their identity. So they can become extremely rebellious. They can overindulge in other activities like sexual activities. They can go to the extremes of use of drugs and substances like alcohol. They also seem to want to find people who can give them more comfort, because they feel a parent has exited and therefore a level of comfort and safety has been taken away. So they might likely begin to seek places of comfort with people who are not safe. And these ones can be boyfriends, these ones can be older men, these ones can be older women, these ones can even be goons. They can get into the groups of gangs. All these things happen as they try to cope with the changes that are happening without a parent. The other changes we experience with adolescents is low self-esteem. They begin to totally lose themselves, lose their confidence. They don't know who they are anymore. In some cases, they can become very rude and extremely angry and show a lot of anger outbursts. All these ones, after separation, are within the normal. That shows that children need help. Otherwise, if they continue like that, they can become inappropriate behaviors that the society does not endorse. In cases of young adults, they need to go through their own process of healing. Now, these ones need their own personal support and being encouraged to seek their own help, because largely they can be able to find their own support from friends, from professionals, from any other area mentors. All these are areas that they can benefit from. It is important to acknowledge that while the parent can encourage their young adults to go seek help for themselves, but they are also, their need for help cannot be undermined, because most of the time the questions asked is, you're not the one facing separation, your parents are going to be there, we will support you, and an assumption that young adults are not affected because they are old enough to be able to take care of themselves. That is not true. They are going through the same emotions, because also that brings them to a point of feeling like they are frauds. Like the life they believed their parents were living, the family they believed they had is no longer there. It's like living your whole life on a lie. That is how young adults experience divorce of their parents. While they can get better faster because they can seek help for themselves, they need to know, if you're a young adult who is coming from a family that has gone through divorce or separation, you need to know that you also need to investigate deeper and check how the divorce of your parents make you feel. How do divorced individuals handle their conflicts? At this point, when divorce happens, the marriage has ended. Even if in the minds of people, the marriage still exists, because it takes a while to conceptualize or to assimilate the fact that the marriage came to an end. So conflicts still remain at marital level where someone feels very offended by the other. It is important to say that at this point, the marriage cannot sit and resolve its issues because that would have ideally been done before divorce happened. We shift attention from the marriage to the individuals. You will notice that if today a couple went through divorce, then their marriage has ended, they will never sit as a marriage to handle their issues. So the issues of the marriage then are internalized as personal. Let me give an example so that I make it clear what I'm trying to share. In case one member of the marriage had extramarital affairs and the marriage has come to an end, then they will never sit to resolve the extramarital affair. The two members are left with each an opportunity. The one who had extramarital affair to think about their life, the one who did not have an extramarital affair, even if they are hurt or wounded by the infidelity of the other, they have to deal with this conflict at a personal level where they go through the process of grieving. So after divorce, then each person has to go through a process of grieving. Why grieve, you ask? Because it's a loss, or actually many losses that have happened when a marriage comes to an end. Apart from the losses, there's also the pain that was caused to different individuals of the marriage, because there's no marriage that ends at divorce that leaves the both parties unhurt. Both parties are hurt but still hurt differently. So each member of the marriage takes time to grieve, to release the pain, to be able to process every single thing that happened in the marriage. This process is best done with a professional. But I can also say that at this point that not all people go through this process with a professional. Whether you're doing a professional or not, ensure that you're going through the process of grieving. You're talking about it, you're writing about it, you're letting it out. You're acknowledging the pain that the marriage caused you. You're acknowledging the hurt that it did to you. You're going through all this process. And finally, you're able to get to a point of realizing that it ended with the other person and that what they did to you hurt you, and get to a place of actually letting them go. That is what we call the grieving process. Once the grieving process has been completed, then the two individuals have to enter a process of disentangling, beginning to handle each other individually as individual persons. And this is what that means. Begins to treat your ex-spouse not as a romantic partner, but as a partner who was. Bring the marriage relationship to an end, meaning this person has a right to date, they have a right to be with other people, they have a right to remarry or marry 10 times should they deem that important to them. So you release them at romantic level. Now I know that is easier said, or it is easier at a mental level than it actually happens in person. So when a person begins to date, you realize that the ex-spouse is very hurt. It's okay to be hurt because you're human, because you're imagining someone else is coming into your space. And it is okay to grieve once again. Keep grieving until you release them. Once you release them, you know they can be with anyone that they choose. If you have arrived at that spot, you're doing very well in terms of your own personal journey of healing. This is the only time I would recommend as a professional then the people go into co-parenting. Again, I am aware that co-parenting happens simultaneously, but this is the ideal time for co-parenting now, because once people have been able to deal with the issues and they have children, they can now be able to only embrace one relationship with each other, the relationship of being parents to their children. That's a level of healing. And at this level, this is where you don't find people conflicting, because your child comes and tells you daddy was with the girlfriend or mommy was with the boyfriend. If you have released the marital relationship, you made peace that this is an individual person, they have freedom to do what they are doing, and then you are only relating with them as at parental level, then you will be sure at that point it will not be hurting you, because you'll be able to realize that they are good parents to your child, and then they can do whatever they want with their life. Now, there's a complication here because some parents wouldn't want other parties to be introduced to their child early enough. That can be addressed, but it can only be addressed at parental level, not at romantic space level. The other way that people continue to resolve their conflicts is once you can be able to relate only as parents with your parents. And then the last one is when both of you are able to enjoy freedom. Like you have given yourself permission to want to date if you want to want to remain single all your life if you want to, but your decisions do not necessarily influence what the other person does. You give yourself permission to redefine yourself and who you want to be, separate from what the marriage had made you. That is the level of healing and resolving the conflicts in the marriage. I believe by the time you get to this level of redefining yourself separate from the marriage as your own individual, not as a single person, single before marriage, but single post-marriage, then you have made you have healed and you have made peace with the part that you are at, and that is the point we can say you've been able to resolve your conflicts post-divorce. How do you know that you're grieving well after divorce? There are very many emotions that come with the process of grieving, but the first one is shock, almost wondering, did that happen really? I mean, like still numb. A number of people will go numb post-divorce, and it's like nothing happened. They're in that space of nothingness. That is a numb space, which is part of divorce, and it's the hardest. But once you move post the numb space, post the shock, then you go to the denial, like, no, it didn't happen. Maybe he'll think and come back. Even divorced people can reconcile, and people, maybe I can better myself. Maybe if I apologize, then he's going to think through and we can get legally married again. That is the denial phase. Thinking that something can happen and minds can be changed and people can be together again. Or that actually denying that the court even issued anything, denying that there was such a process that happens. There's also the second process, which is anger. This one is marred with pain, need to revenge, praying that everything goes wrong with the other person, wishing karma on them. Like, it's everything that is vengeful. You are thinking, if they were not the cause, if only this did not happen, if only they didn't get to that level, then you wouldn't be in this space. And you're very, very angry with the person, angry at the society, angry at the in-laws because you feel they supported him maybe, or they supported her, angry at God because, I mean, you imagine God may have fixed that he didn't fix. So that's the anger phase. And the third phase is what I'll call bargain, where you keep thinking, oh, they will come back. What if we did this? What if I tried? What if? There's a lot of what ifs there. A sense of wishing that things would reverse, that is a bargain phase. And different people will do different things. In some instances, that bargain phase, people will look for their exes to go back to, and sometimes they will just initiate sex talk, thinking by going back and having sex, they are even going to restore their marriages. There are other people who believe by being too good, buying them gifts and doing certain things, then they are going to restore back their marriages. All this is space for bargain. There's also the next phase that is called depression, where now everything is not working. You've tried everything, nothing seems to work. You're emotionally down. You have realized that this marriage might never work actually, and so you're feeling all the heaviness that comes with it. In some instances, some people attempt suicide. In some instances, they are very suicidal. They are having these ideas in their thoughts. In some instances, they feel like life has come to an end. This is where they suffer the extremes of feeling like they failed. They show you how they failed. They show you society sees them as failure. they feel like they are the worst kind of humans. This is at the phase of depression. It is still normal within the grief period. However, I need to say, if you feel the need to threaten your life, to harm yourself or harm others, then you might need to know that you need immediate help because you may not be handling the depression phase well. Then the last phase is acceptance, where you come to terms with it happened, it happened. This is what was meant to be, and beginning to create comfort within the new phase. Now, this is where I said you make peace with being a single person post-divorce. That you get to a point of not labeling yourself necessarily as a divorcee in the way society looks at it, but getting to a point of acknowledging that you can be productive and be a healthy person even post-divorce. And that you can learn lessons and become the best version of yourself, as opposed to looking at yourself through all the negatives of divorce. Is there a healthy way to divorce? I like to say there are better ways of divorcing other than healthy. And better in this case is where the two people have agreed that for sure the marriage is not working for them, or they are not on the same page of life, and therefore they cannot coexist. Let me give an example. A case where one of the parties feels that they are probably more inclined to same sex and they were already in a marriage, and the other party notice that it's not every case of same sex that can lead to divorce. I am using this particular example as one of them, where the marriage was heterosexual before, and now one feels a more inclination to same sex. So they both agree, because I don't want to change you, I cannot change you anyway, and I cannot be with you, then it's okay, we can go two separate ways. That would appear amicable, doesn't make it the best option, or doesn't mean without pain, but it can appear amicable. Now, in such cases, that is a better way than where one feels aggrieved because the one wants to end, the other person wants to keep it. So better ways is where two people agree. But we also acknowledge that even where people do not agree, that by the time a marriage enters a divorce phase, because I imagine in most cases, people will go through separation, or there'll be issues unresolved for a long time, it is important to keep moving with the marriage and as it progresses, and make peace with the possibility that the marriage can end, so that by the time divorce comes, you are in a better space to see. It doesn't get you by shock. That would be slightly easier. Does not mean without pain. Either way, there is no way that divorce can happen without pain. Pain has to be part of the divorce process. And even when people agree, they have to still go through the process of grieving. So how will a person know they have been healed, or they have healed post-divorce? We said that once a couple ends a marriage through divorce, then it ceases to be two people resolving issues. It means an individual has to work through their own journey, healing their own pain and dealing with their own hearts. That is the process of healing. Also, the process of healing is marked by the stages of grieving that a person goes through until they get to the point of acceptance. Once one has gotten to the point of acceptance, then there's the other part that you check to be able to tell that you're fully healed. Number one is you're no longer wishing your partner ill. When you think about them, you don't feel triggered, or negativity does not pop up anymore, because you've dealt with that negativity and the pain, and you can think about them and not feel much pain, or not feel pain at all. That is the first stage of healing, or how you check that you're healed. The second stage of it is when you think through your partner and the marriage that was, you can acknowledge you had good times and celebrate them, and you acknowledge that there were the bad times and they're not causing you pain. So the marriage stops to be only black, the marriage that was. You can see there were good times and there were the bad times. The third part of knowing that you're well and healed is when you begin to look at the things that happened in the marriage and look them through the eyes of now and realize that some of those things you would have done differently because you've gone through a process, you understand things better, your perspectives have changed. So you can look at those conflicts and realize if they were in the now, you would have resolved them differently. If you still feel like you gave your best and that is all there was, then for sure, there are lessons you still have not learned, and I would say your healing is not yet complete. So once you begin to see the lessons that you have learned, and then you begin to employ them not only in romantic lives, but in general lives, then you have gained from the marriage that did not work. You have learned, you have let go the pain, you have learned the lessons, and those lessons are benefiting you in the now. The fifth way to tell that you have healed is simply when you can wish your ex-partner well. You're not actively doing anything to make their life more better because that is on them to do that. But then also when you think about them, you don't wish any ill would happen to them. In fact, given a choice, even that mental choice of would you like something wrong to happen to them, once you've been healed, you'll be able to say, surely, I will not benefit in any way, even if they get hurt by life or something like that. So you're able to look at them and wish them well, even if you're not doing anything about it. Now, the sixth and the last stage is acknowledging that this person has a right to be with someone else should they wish for that. And also when you hear they are dating, you may feel something, but also recognize that that was to be part of their journey. So in a sense, you let go their life, knowing that they can choose whichever life they want, good or bad, and that it's not on you to fix that. They can take any life, and so long as they're doing what will benefit them, it shouldn't bother you. When you get to that space, then you know you are healed. And then the last one is you will feel that you can relate with people without wanting to look at them through the eyes of your ex. Let me give an example. If conflicts began because your ex started getting late, for example, then you're dating someone who comes in late, then you're not like, this is how my ex started. You're able to see the difference that these two people are different, and there might be a genuine reason why this person is late. And you can be able to address issues individually without tagging in the behavior of your ex on someone you're seeing now or people you're dealing with now. What happens if someone has not healed? Now, if someone has not yet healed, I would say they are courting disaster, because living a marriage by itself does not offer healing. As we have explained, then there is all the other process that needs to be taken for you to get to a place of healing. When someone hasn't healed, they are likely to attract someone who is going to meet this emptiness within them, because divorce, separation leaves an emptiness within you. Someone has exited, things have left. There's space unoccupied. So you're going to be looking for someone who can feel that, and you're looking at someone at emotional level and not at a rational level. So once they feel your emotion, they actually may do that for a short period of time, and you seem very happy and comfortable until the day you get to a point of stabilizing and realize you never needed them in the first place. That is what we call rebound. You will continue to rebound and attract people who you never needed to attract in the first place. In the second instance, without healing, you're likely to attract a similar person like the one you have let go. Now, let me say we attract at the levels of our unconsciousness. If you haven't healed, meaning you have not learned your part of contribution in a marriage, because even in extremes, there's no marriage that ends when only one party was wrong. Both parties did contribute to the marriage ending in some ways, even if one more than the other, but there's still contribution of each member of the marriage. So without one healing their part of contribution of the marriage, you will get into another only to reproduce the same dynamics and clearly end up at the same divorce or still be dysfunctional. Research has shown that it is easier for a person who has divorced once to divorce again than a person who has never been divorced. And clearly, that is the dynamic I am explaining. Without healing, you will continue to act out the same behavior, the same one that did not benefit your first marriage. In extreme cases of not healing, people continue to be in grief. People continue to be very negative. People continue to be very disturbed, to be vengeful, to be hurtful because they have not healed. So yours will be long-term effects of divorce, and the pain will be caused, and you will be bleeding on the people who do not deserve it, because you are acting out your pain on people who do not deserve that pain. Can divorce be prevented? I believe yes, largely. If a couple can learn to resolve issues early enough as they come, yes, divorce can be prevented. If they acknowledge that the issues that they are dealing with are beyond them, then they can seek help. Seek help from any place you feel would benefit you, whether it is an older couple, whether it is a best couple, whether it is a pastor, whether it is a member of society, anyone you feel can benefit your marriage, still seek help from them. However, I also need to send a disclaimer at this point. Not every marriage that looks okay is actually okay. And this is why I end by saying, to be on the most safest side, seek help from a professional. But that does not mean you do not have other avenues of help. If you try other avenues of help that help you, fair enough. It is going to be benefiting to your marriage. But I will say it is better to try than not to try any avenue. Then you're left regretting. Probably if you tried, you would have been helped. Also, it is important to acknowledge that if you're seeking help from a pastor, from an elder, from a family member, from an older couple in the society, they may not be equipped with exactly the right skills to deal with your marital challenges. Should you realize that is the case for you, fair enough. Then you need to move to a professional who is competent to deal with that.